Yep. We're just waiting a few moments for a couple of the team members to arrive. So as this thing populates, I might not see team members in the audience. Any team members that want an invite up on stage, be sure to put your hand up, please.
Hello, how's it going?
Hey there. Glad you could make it. How are you?
Pretty well, pretty well. It's been a long week here with mainnet launch and planning out all the exciting things we want to bring to the community and launch. It's pretty cool, pretty exciting. I think Koii has talked a lot about, AI on Koii, and we've been working towards it for a long time. We're finally in a position where we think we can really start building it out, and we actually have in the pipeline our first template for building, your own AI agents on Koii, and then we're going to try and create some dashboards so that you can also, users can sort of automate that kind of stuff. Really excited about that.
Oh,
And
very good.
automation? Yeah, it's super exciting. And after the automation bit, I think the next step is giving users just a really wide platform to start playing around with these AI agents and seeing what they can do. One plan we have is for them to, start editing GitHub repos. So like, you know, code writing sort of agents, which would be really cool. Another thing is like we want shopping agents that help you shop. They find all the best deals online. We've thought of a bunch of other fun ones too. So yeah, really excited. Lots of hype.
So even though I know I see Ellie sitting in the audience, and so I know we've got some high-level AI people watching, I'll ask a pretty basic question. Um, will will people be building agents on Koi, or will they be connecting agents to Koi?
The idea would be both.
Okay.
So from one angle, you might want to build your own agent from the ground up. You might want to find a model online that you really like. Maybe you've heard of it. Maybe it's GPT and you have your API key. Maybe it's one that you just found online that a guy made. We've seen a lot of new meme trading AIs that some people just made. And maybe you want to bring that over to Koi and you want to host it, and you want to do fun stuff with it, and you're not much of a programmer. That'll be one avenue for you. And then the other thing is, maybe you have your AI assistant on, ChatGPT. Maybe you have, a AI assistant. You're a developer. You have an AI assistant. You used LangChain. You're using, Base's sort of agent kit SDK, and you want to, hook that up with something that's going on Koi. We want to enable that too. So the sort of goal is, wide spectrum support from developers all the way to end users to really get AI agents working on Koi, and I think that's going to be our next big push. Not only will it drive the token price up, I think tremendously if everybody, can make a free AI agent that's sort of hosted together and then like they can start doing whatever we need them to do over time. Those will build utility. They'll get smart enough to build websites. They'll get smart enough to trade meme coins. They'll be smart enough to trade anything really. And from there, I think the world's sort of our oyster.
Does that look like from an end user perspective? Is are those agents just other tasks that are listed? Is there a separate marketplace for that? Uh, how does that look?
Yeah, so we're going to try and release a few tasks that power a network of agents. So you could consider, let's say, I want to have my code writing agent and my shopping agent. Well, one task will power a network of code writing ones, and another task would power a network of the shopping ones. And then, as the end user, so once you start these tasks and you're supplying the network with compute, you'll get tokens back for doing that. And those tokens you'll be able to use to go to a website, and then you can run an AI model just like that. And it's basically like if you ever go to ChatGPT, you have to pay for your tokens. Tokens in a different context there, but you have to pay for the AI to go. You need an API key, or you have to like get a premium or a plus account. It's sort of the same model, except this way we're paying one another instead of paying Amazon or Microsoft.
Well, you might answer this in a different way, but at the most basic level, you've got people using tasks and people running tasks. Um, as somebody hosting a node myself, I know that I open up the node, I get a list of tasks that somebody else is running, but that's not the same as using, for example, an agent. So where would people go to utilize the agent, not to contribute to somebody else's agent? Is there a distinction there?
Absolutely. If you want to use an agent, you have to inherently contribute to someone else's agent. And what I think we mean by that is it's really a crowdsource, crowd build, crowd fund sort of setting where
Wow.
w- everybody powers the network and we all do this great thing sort of together. It'll be easy for you to do though. I think the other part of it is how I'll even do it. Well, once you start running the task, just passively, these tokens will go into your wallet and you can, we'll list them on our decks that's coming out soon. But optionally, you might just want to go to a website and use them to do AI stuff. And that's how easy it's going to be. Just like ChatGPT, if you've ever gone to ChatGPT, our dashboard will be a little more complex to handle a little bit more stuff like, a financial dashboard and the basics of, an internet searching sort of portal. So you can have your AI look through the internet. You can have it maybe do some financial stuff. You can maybe have it connect to GitHub and write code. So we'll have a few different types of window options, a few different buttons you'll be able to click on your navigation bar. But at the end of the day, it'll be a website, and you'll be able to interact with it like very naturally, um, in a way that doesn't require any extra effort. And of course, the developers in the community that want to make their own type of agent, right? I want to make a gaming, an games AI agent, or I want to make, my own trading algorithm, so I can have my own trading agent, and it's different from all the other ones. I think that's sort of sort of where the developer steps in to really open up the ecosystem. And so we're hoping if we as Koii, we make a really good example of this model of here's a template for how to make your own model by implementing your own algorithms, and then you can deploy that model as a task, and then it'll get trained. That model will get trained by everybody using it, and to use it, all you need to do is go to a website, and you just need to tell your friends to go to this website. And just how ChatGPT grew, we can grow these other massive agents, sort of powering the entire network. Powered by the entire network, sorry, is what I meant.
Okay, so we've been saying AI agent over and over and over without really defining it. Let me let me say at the most basic level, agent I've ever seen was, and maybe they get simpler than this even, was somebody programmed an agent so that when they got a voice message on Telegram, it automatically read it, translated it via ChatGPT, and then outputted it to a JSON file or sent them an email with that text. Uh, it translates voice to text and then sends it to them automatically. so they don't have to be listening to voice on a busy subway or something like that. So that's kind of I think a simple idea that an agent can do. How complex can they get at this point? Like um, what is the spectrum of what people can do with agents thus far? And next month will be completely different, I realize.
Yeah, I think that the key is it's not so much what can an AI agent do, it's how well can it do it. I think an AI agent can functionally do anything you can possibly see on a computer. I've seen people use AI agents to break open Windows and get all the way to the bottom layer, and they've been able to overclock their computers for gaming. I've seen people use AI agents to write JSON, to trade, to run businesses, to give you marketing plans. I've seen AI agents basically do everything. The question is, how well do they do it? I think that there's a huge problem with training capacity. If you want to train a model to make it anywhere near as good as even GPT 3.5, um, even GPT 2, it is a tremendous, tremendous amount of data that you need to do this. One of the big advents of ChatGPT is not only that it can kind of do anything. It's a language model that knows how to use functions. So if you write the right code, it can kind of do anything. It also got everybody to train it. Everybody in the world uses ChatGPT, and as we use it, at least if you're a free user, you're training it. You're making it better over time. I think that mechanism is really important. And so, that's what we can build at Koii is this mechanism where everybody's using this model and it's getting better at what it wants to do. Sure, maybe it's a shopping model that doesn't buy anything or it always buys the worst deal possible. It's like a useless model. If we run it enough and we test it enough and we train it enough before putting our real money into it, and we do this as a community, we can make any AI good enough to accomplish any task as long as the scope is relatively limited. So you can't, we're probably not at like generalized intelligence, as they call it, or general intelligence. But we do have specific intelligence or narrow intelligence, as we say in machine learning, and that's when we set out to do a specific task with AI and it gets the job done. I think that's a really feasible thing to accomplish here on Koi.
Okay, so let's say that we've got 20 of those after 6 months that have been fully developed on Koi, that users have been training. They've turned it into a very kind of desirable, sophisticated suite of AI agents. How does Koi then capture the value of that economically and give it back to the community? I know that that's part of your business model.
Yeah, I mean, the value that an agent produces, right, inherently sort of gets fed back into the community. I think we have the idea that you could have this KPL token, right? And that's powering your AI agent and maybe or type of AI agent. Let's say go back to the shopping AI agent model and it can do all the shopping for you. And you have this token that's basically bound to, the performance of the shopping model. Eventually, hopefully, your model gets popular enough that not just people running the task want to use it, but everybody, else wants to use it. And they're going to need to purchase your token, for example, or they're going to need to acquire it in some way. And so the people who've been running your task to train up your agent, they'll have this huge advantage, right? Because they trained your agent and they mined a bunch of your tokens, and now they can use this really powerful, shopping tool that everybody uses. Maybe it's like Honey, right? It finds the best coupon codes across, all the internet, and then it slaps those in for you. Now you get to use that almost for free, or at least you have this huge excess token supply that you can keep on using it, right? And then other people will come in, they'll try and buy those tokens, and you have part of that excess supply. So you could trade those tokens down, or optionally, you can hold on to them. I bet you they'll end up going up the more the AI model becomes valuable. If the AI model is valuable enough, if it's a code writing AI model, for example, you probably never want to give up those tokens. They're just going to get more expensive, and you're going to be able to write code for cheaper. And of course, that always comes back down to the base level, which is the Koi community, the Koi network, and the Koi token itself. Because the more utility we build on top of Koi, the more it's doing ultimately to power this huge Cloud 2 compute network, the more valuable it becomes inherently. And that sort of really incentivizes this loop of running the task to train the model, and also training the model and being a part of this feedback cycle that's, I think, really powerful and ultimately, I think, could lead to some really big innovations. So we have Al
So
here.
yes, we do. And I got one more question, and I open it to the both of you. This gets more into economics of crypto. Um, I don't quite know how to ask this. Crypto has boom and bust cycles, um, and the resiliency of tokens and companies are kind of tethered to those cycles. How does one maintain value in a marketplace during a downturn if that value is helping drive like product production and development? Um,
I can probably dive in on this one first, Kris. Thanks for
yeah,
the nice, easy softball there. I think the key thing people don't realize, if you look at like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, whatever it is, the L1 chain is there to secure transactions and process them quickly. And so when you pay gas fees on Ethereum or Solana to trade some token, the reason you're paying that gas fee is because somewhere out there a validator node needs to be turned on, and that's how we're securing the transaction and like actually making the network work. That's how the network has consensus, which Bitcoin was very straightforward. Ethereum was a little less straightforward. Solana is very complicated. Koii is even more complicated. But at the core of it, you're paying for that verification and the fact that the network has, rubber stamped what you did as a success. And these gas fees are really the core of everything. So on Koii, the gas fees go to the validators on K2, but they also go to people who stake on those validators. And so anybody who's listening, if you have tokens that you've earned from the testnet, you can go and stake those on Hejiro or on a validator using the CLI. And that means that you're actually backing the security of the network. And so at the core, that's how Koii is valuable. Very simply, it's just we need people to pay transaction fees in Koii tokens. And if more people pay transaction fees, then the value of Koii will go up over time. Interestingly, on the network right now, we have I think about 8,000 nodes that transitioned over from testnet already. And all of those are doing transactions. So with 8,000 nodes, we're doing like about 8 million transactions a day. And each of those transactions has a small gas fee on it, which is going back to a validator, which is going back to ensuring that kind of the people who are holding Koii and staking Koii are making that passive income. The neat thing about this is like kind of like Avi was saying, if these nodes are generating value, then this tiny little gas fee, which could be like less than a penny per day, is going to add up to a lot of revenue for the ecosystem. And the node operators and the nodes and the tasks will all be very happy to pay this because they're able to then participate in this collaborative network. And I think the final thing, which we haven't touched on much, is network effects. And so this is where, just having a compute device isn't that valuable, but having a compute device as a part of a global group of compute devices, that's exciting because it means we can coordinate things, we can do them as a group. And then the even more exciting part is having a compute device with access to, you as a person, or your AI agent is your assistant and is going out there to try and make you money. It has access to your socials. It has access to anything you give it access to, and then it can use those to actually build passive income for you, and also get you access to new features. So, like for example, Astrolink is rolling out a new feature where you'll be able to pay to boost your own profile. And so, by participating in Astrolink and supporting, whatever kind of themes that they're talking about on social media each week, you'll also be getting tokens that you can use to boost yourself on social media. And so, there's a lot of these kinds of like circular economy kinds of things, which it's not necessarily about just making the token price go up. It's also about delivering a lot of adjacent value to people who are running the node or participating in the ecosystem. That's what we're working on, at least. Koii Labs, like, when we're just ripping out through a bunch of code, we're trying to ship lots of things out every week so that we're improving that experience. And we think that we're getting closer pretty much every day, or we can feel that we're getting closer every day, which is the exciting part. And there's kind of a tipping point where, the whole thing kind of takes off on its own. AI software development is a big part of that too, because once we have that, then the next layer will build itself more or less.
it seems to me that during kind of a down crypto cycle, which is what, every 3 years maybe, um, if you have tasks on the node that people need to use, then you've kind of almost decoupled yourself from that boom bust because you're always going to have users. Was that the goal from the beginning? I mean, one of the goals?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the economics are designed that way on purpose, and that's definitely a big thing that I've always seen is kind of lacking in the crypto world. The other side of this that's really cool though is Koii will soon be integrated with like Western Union money transfers and a few of these other like kind of large institutional networks, and that will mean that if you do have a kind of passive income coming in from your node, you can actually cash it out to cash if you'd like to. But the mission at Koii Labs is that we want you to not want to cash that out and instead keep reinvesting it in the growth of the ecosystem. And so there's this balance where, if node operators aren't satisfied with the latest growth that we've done, then, maybe they want to cash out and, take their ticket, which is, that's everybody's right. And so there will be fluctuations based on that kind of stuff. But what we're really hoping to do with Koii is, if you've made 100 USDC, then you should be able to do something useful with that, with your node, with your agents, and you should be able to leverage your compute hardware to make that $100 into 105 or 120 or $200. And that's really where we're kind of looking at this from. The best investment you can make is in yourself. And so if we continue to provide those kinds of opportunities, it's less about how the token price performs in the short term and more about, over the next 2 years, how much can somebody who's participating in Koii as an individual get out of this? And how much can we do for them as a community, and where can we find that added value,
So, what are, in your mind, maybe realistic expectations over those next 2 years? Where would the average user using Koii and running a Koii node best sort of put their time and effort if they want to maximize that?
So I think the thing that people probably aren't aware of right now, obviously stacking tokens is fun. But the real reason that we're doing all these test nets and the reason that like kind of running a node right now is really important is it gets you to the front of the line from a reputation standpoint. So the longer your wallet has been active, the more you can get access to in the future. And so each time that we bring out a new feature or product, we're going to give it to the the VIPs and the core community members first. I think we also onboarded about 50 people to VIP this week, which means that basically we've verified that they're real people. We've given them the VIP tokens, and now they're basically credentialed as OGs in the Koii community. So if you're not part of that, you can anybody in the community can sign up and start going through the VIP process. The trick there though is it's all about creating this user experience layer that's guided by AI and distributed computing, which can give each person kind of their own advantage as an individual in this digital landscape. And we think that this is kind of this is sort of how we fight back against the centralizing forces of AI. So it's kind of you get your ticket, you get your membership, and then supporting the network right now, and giving your compute to other people. You're getting all these tokens, but really, actually, what you're doing is building up a presence and helping us grow this network, which is a key thing. Because there's a lot more in the future versus where we are right now. In the future, Koii effectively should be how you interact with the web. And so Koii is not a blockchain. It's not necessarily just a token. Koii is a set of tools that you can use to interact with AI agents, to be able to get compute hardware and get data and all these things, and to have your AI agents orchestrate that so that you can make some sort of like kind of side hustle income. And the way we see this, like you really shouldn't have to be a developer to do that. So that's why we're really focused on the agentic side, because it should open up the doors a lot so that people can leverage their hardware and their data and really kind of take advantage of all the opportunities out there.
So I may be making you repeat yourself with this one, but could you just sort of reiterate and maybe dig a little bit deeper on the benefits of getting a good reputation? I know there's a lot of min-maxers out there in the crypto world, and it may be sort of hard to min-max a elusive concept like reputation. Care to give it a go?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'd say it's about optionality. So if you're min-maxing it, if you have a Koii node and you've kept it online and you're a real person and you've been part of the ecosystem, that means that you have the option in the future of being one of the top people at Koii. Our vision at Koii is people with computers can rule the future, and people with computers can have AI. They can have full infrastructure dedicated to them. And so what we really hope to do here, if we can get enough devices and we can grow this quick enough, we will be able to rebuild in a large way many of the protocols and applications we use on the internet every day. And so that's the long-term vision here, is to be able to replace all of those kind of typical applications and flows that you use and put them all through this consumer cloud that we're building. And we've spent a long time to get the nuts and bolts working and to be able to have all the fine details. And now we're at this point where the ecosystem is about to take off very rapidly. And so finally, the reputation thing is, if you have a need, or if you ask your AI agent, say, hey, I want to know what's going on with the Tesla price today, do some research and get back to me. And your agent needs suddenly a lot of web scraping capacity. It needs a lot of storage. It needs a lot of compute capacity to go crunch all these numbers. Then for an instant, you can borrow that from everybody on the network. So as opposed to it taking maybe a day for your computer to go and crunch all the data, you can actually suddenly get access to it very, very quickly as sort of an IOU structure. And that's kind of like credit in this future economy that we're looking at. And this isn't something unique to Koii. This is something that most of the kind of agentic marketplaces talk about. But on Koii, the cool thing is all of these different tasks and all of these different agents that you run are all actually leading back to a single reputation score and a single kind of credit score. And so this is like a net positive thing. But if you have been part of the ecosystem for a long time, if you're relatively active, if you have VIP tokens, that kind of thing, then we're going to make sure that you get priority access in the future. And also, you get airdrops and all that kind of thing, which is always great.
I remember being in a conversation years ago with you about this, where we talked about the concept of credit score, and it's kind of a cringeworthy term to use in the U.S. With the credit agencies. Do you want to speak to how you differentiate it in this case? It's not like a credit score like most people would think of it, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if you did something really malicious to the network, then you'd be in trouble. But for the most part, this is a net positive thing. So
Right.
if you have been active for a long time, if you have been building up that reputation, then there are more positive things about you out there, and people will be nicer to you because there's more positive things about you. Comparing that with like social credit scores or like the credit rating system, as you mentioned, I think it's a very different framework. Most of those systems are designed to weed out bad actors, whereas what we're trying to do is to kind of accommodate good actors and to accelerate, people who are faithful participants in the network.
Right. Thank you. I wanted to make that distinction. So your answer struck me as being pretty usable for power users within the Koii ecosystem, within the larger Koii family. Like I look out in the audience right now and I see my partner sitting there who's been running a node since I think the week you opened up the nodes, and she's dedicated like her laptop to that, and that's its only function. It is our node in the house, but she's not necessarily a power user. What will a good reputation get for just a more passive community member who wants to participate but isn't going to be out there developing tasks or demanding a lot of compute power?
So this is actually the pretty unique thing. As we move towards Koii tasks being more of an agent workflow, you will not need to really think about being a developer or using compute capacity like that. It's more like your node will be doing the best it can to maximize your rewards. And that in that process, it might need access to something that another node has. And that's where the reputation can fit in. But it also controls, access to airdrops and access to new tasks that come out. And a lot of this is going to be an automated process between our different agents. And so, as opposed to clicking a button and having to go read through everything on your node, things will be a lot more efficient. And that efficiency kind of comes from this added reputation.
Okay, thank you. I didn't mean to have the CEO get on and Avi take a back seat suddenly. Avi, did you have anything you wanted to add to this conversation?
Honestly, I'm happy to listen. It's
Okay,
a fantastic
okay.
opportunity. Yeah, I don't get much breaks in
So
the day, but at the same time, I don't think Al does either. So I shouldn't
no, Al does
put it all
not.
on
Al
him.
does not. So one of the other things I wanted to do with this happy hour, besides update the community and get the community to know personalities a bit more, was to get some insight into what it's like to run a company, to work for a crypto company. I hesitate to call it a crypto company. It's so much more, and that might not even be its primary focus. But one of the benefits of having, for lack of a better word, the boss on the line is I think you can get some pretty unscripted answers. One of the lessons I learned in life is there's always going to be a difference between um, on candor levels when you're asking an employee versus somebody that can sort of just throw the dice and tell it like it is. So, Al, we're not going to probably get you on here very often because I know how busy you are, but maybe share what it's like starting a project like this, seeing it what, 5 years through, having to be all things for all people, because I've known you in this project to wear just about every hat imaginable. Like, what have you learned from this? Would you do it again? Like, really, what are your thoughts in general?
Well, at the beginning, I think you probably remember this. Koii had a slightly different appearance in terms of what the product was, but we were still very focused on the same idea, the knowledgeable, open, infinite internet. The idea that we can take anybody in the world and give them more opportunity by having a new internet that works better, that is more independence oriented and has better free market principles, kind of the Web3 dream that everybody wants. And what we've done over the last 4 years is to try just about every way to make that dream a reality effectively. And it's not just about testing code and debugging things. It's also about looking at the economics of it, bringing in different stakeholders, seeing what's important to people. And I think we've at this point finally settled in on something that's very stable, that is very attainable, where we figured out how to use a lot of people's home laptops and PCs in a way that's much more valuable than the same amount of compute capacity in a data center. And that's something that a lot of people said they basically said it was impossible. And so we set out to prove all of those people wrong about 3 or 4 years ago. And that's always a difficult path to take, but it seemed necessary because from our standpoint, if there's a limited number of really big data centers out there, then AI is going to be something that owns us, that is running on a bunch of big machines that we can't really ever have a hope of owning. And that was always a scary idea, and that kind of led us down this path. And I think at this point, we've developed enough really good technology that we have sort of an edge in this market. And now I think the challenge has moved from can we do it to can we do the technology to can we get the technology into the hands of the people that will most likely be able to use it the best. And then now, even from there, because I think at this point we're finding a lot of really amazing developers around the world, and it's growing every day. We have these campus activation programs through Koii Global, and so that's been growing and that's going really well. And then the final step now is can we take someone with an idea who is going to use Koii's great tech, who has all of the access and resources? Can we take that person and can we make them, capable of being a leader and a role model in this revolution? And I think that side of it as well is now kind of coming together. We have some amazing people on the team, like Melvis, who's got a lot of kind of accelerator experience, and we're bringing in even more people, like some of the folks who've run pretty notable accelerators across the Web3 ecosystem. And the goal really is just going to be to try to leapfrog to a point where Koii has one of the most vibrant communities of founders, turbocharged by some of the best technology with the backing of a great community of node operators. And I think there's a very good chance that we could see, hundreds or thousands of tokens launch on Koii this year, especially if we can get the AI-generated code going, because it's going to make it much easier.
Wow, that's I didn't realize that the vision was that soon. So, from a UI UX perspective, if you have that number of tokens hitting a marketplace in a short period of time, what can we expect to see? Like, what will a Koii node look like in the future? Will you have like a browsable web page where people can go and look for tasks, or will it be entirely contained within a node? Like, what are your plans there?
So version 1 of the node just came out. We were on version 0.0 point something for the whole year this year. And we finally got to version 1 just now. So that was something like 90 or 100 versions this past year in 2024. What we would like to do this year, I think, is get to version 2, which is a little bit more intuitive and probably a lot more lightweight. That's probably more like the kind of direction that we're going with it, because we're in the process of building it, is like a chat type interface, something that's a little bit more interactive. And then a lot of the stuff that you see in the node right now, we'll probably you'll find that somewhere in like a menu page that gives you more information about what's happening, but you wouldn't necessarily have to look at it directly right away. And I think the key thing here is all of these different tokens, all these different kind of using decentralized exchanges. That seems very difficult for an individual, but if you have an agent working with you, there's a lot of things you can do there that are much easier to interface with. And so most likely what would happen is, your agent would propose to you, hey, there's a new token trending. This is going to be something that you might want to try. Would you like to learn more? And you can chat with your agent until you're comfortable, and then it can run the task if you want to run it. And that's probably where this is headed, because it really takes the technical edge off it and makes it a lot easier for people.
Is there this may be a ridiculous question, I don't know. Is there a liability component using somebody's AI agent if there is a financial hook somewhere in it? Or is that just covered with disclaimers, or is it not covered at all?
I mean, it's an open source decentralized network, so kind of use at your own risk, which I think
Gotcha.
our lawyers would say.
Okay, so it's really up to the community rating system for each individual task to kind of authenticate it over time, and that's kind of the value inherent in a rating system.
Yeah, but like even like the top audit firms in the industry also use AI agents to audit code and to review it. So before you actually run a task, your agent can make sure that it's been reviewed by enough other nodes and then can kind of actually parse that. So a lot of these things that seem complicated with humans, but like things that are working relatively well, like where the community is auditing the code base and talking about the tasks, those kinds of things will be turbocharged as we introduce these kind of agentic models. It just makes things a lot faster. It's the same process, but much more efficient.
Very nice. And we were talking about this a bit before you came on. Where do you see agents at 6 months from now compared to today, as far as capacity and flexibility?
So I guess I can speak a little bit to the recent research we're doing, but the general idea here is you want a very lightweight agent running on a GPU somewhere to be able to do very complicated things. And so it's about batching it and making the scope of each problem that you ask the agent to do a little bit smaller. But we've had some pretty significant breakthroughs in how we do that. So I think we'll be able to use the consumer capacity that we have a lot more aggressively. And I think we're going to see pretty amazing results with that. The first step is obviously like being able to have a group of people come together, pool their agents, and write code on a repo. So we're going to be putting out a bunch of bug bounties for different things that we need on Koii, like IPFS and CDNs and messaging apps and VPNs and things like that. And if you and a group of people pool your devices and tell the agent that runs on your devices to go work on that bounty, you could win a prize basically as a retroactive grant for just having your agents go to town building an app or building a template and that kind of thing. I think that's going to be a tremendously exciting phase because it's going to mean that there's more and more of this kind of base infrastructure on Koii, and it should rapidly evolve to a point where there's so much base infrastructure that it becomes even faster and easier to build everything on top of it.
So let's say it's a year from now, we're sitting in this meeting again, and I ask you what one agent surprised the hell out of you this year and delighted you. Like, what might your answer look like? And with this question, I'm still trying to scratch at that possibility. Like, what can you do with an agent? I mean, Avi said everything, but that sometimes too many options is no options at all. So what would really
So I think
delight you to
the
see?
sweet spot with Koii is, we're running on a lot of consumer hardware, so we don't have the huge GPU resources. We might not have the data capacity that like a traditional AI company would, but there are areas where we can have a huge cost advantage and where people can put their perspective and their personal genius into their agent. And that's really the advantage here is like it's a swarm of smaller agents that have maybe a little bit less capacity, but have a very unique perspective. And so it's the best things are things you can scope really well, where you can have a really specific idea of what needs to happen and a really specific acceptance criteria. And so that's like, writing code, maybe generating an image is also a good one. There's things like basically, processing some large data sets. So I think things like Trueflation are going to be really interesting, and we'll be able to do a lot more of that. But it's also making it more intuitive, right? So it wouldn't just be scraping the internet for data the way we do on Trueflation now. It would also be, probably a strong visualization and an interactive component where people can actually go and interface with that. And there's a lot of interesting layers there. I would say probably though we'll have something in the music area, and hopefully we'll get another Koii theme song. That would make me very happy.
So when you're looking out to the popular agents people are using today, where's the critical gap? Where do you kind of face palm and say, why isn't this done yet? We should be using an agent for this.
So actually, the way that agents work is they're better when they have tools. So you can think of this kind of like the way that people work. Like if you have a calculator, you can do much bigger math. And so actually, when agents run, mostly what they're good at is reasoning. And so they can be asked a question and they can provide a logical answer and research facts and kind of put together sort of a complex solution to a problem. But they're actually really bad at doing things like math. And so the thing where I think there's a big advantage here is writing a whole bunch of supporting libraries and little tools that can run on Koii nodes, where the agents can deploy some very small part of their reasoning process and then get back an answer very quickly. And this can really extend what we can do with traditional like ChatGPT type APIs. And it also can extend a lot what we can do with just small agents running on these smaller devices. I gotta hand you back to Avi. Sorry, Avi, I completely hijacked this. I have to go for a short call with one of our investors to help deal with something quickly. I might try to hop back on at the end, but very good chat. And thanks everybody for being so great this week. The token is now live. Stay tuned for a lot more exciting stuff in the future.
Thanks, Al.
See you, Kris.
So I was gonna just ask Al a follow-up, and now it's in your lap, Avi.
Sure.
It sounds to me, and I'm fully aware that more than half the audience knows a lot more about this than I do. So I apologize for asking some kindergarten questions here. Do you imagine Koii as sort of a neural network of AI agents, each with their own sort of special task in interacting with one another, or do you imagine that it's more siloed than that?
Um, I mean, it's for sure both. But I think from my own personal perspective, what I'd like to see is a sort of more harmonious ecosystem. I mean, I think it'd be really cool if one task was like an AI agent, and it could take advantage of the work of another task. Let's say we have this web scraping task, like Truflation's web scraping task, where they're collecting a bunch of inflation monitoring data. They're collecting all this data and they're using it somehow. I think it'd be really cool if another task that's an AI agent could use this inflation monitoring data to make informed decisions about this and that. Once upon a time, we were talking about Koii as an plugins ecosystem, where we were thinking like, what if each task was also a plugin? Um, the idea would be like it'd be kind of like a WordPress ecosystem where you had this again, it was an AI agent that could sort of coordinate all these plugins. You could give it some instructions, and it could sort of develop or create the sort of organization that you're trying to develop here, the project or whatever. But I think more realistically, it's just that tasks need to be able to acknowledge one another. And if we can do that, then I think we have this really harmonious, symbiotic ecosystem where every task helps improve the next task or offers value so that the next task that comes out has that increased value. Sort of
So
like an upwards momentum.
I imagine that one of the advantages you have is if all the tasks are hosted in the same ecosystem, that of Koii, um, you probably solve a lot of problems with communication from task to task, right? I'm not a coder, so I don't know if that is the case, but I imagine it would be easier than having disparate software packages trying to communicate back and forth.
We definitely develop our own unified system. Um, something that I think we want to develop. It's not necessarily in the pipeline quite yet, but is an improved SDK. Right now, Koii borrows a lot from Solana. We're a fork of Solana, version I think it was 14, and of course, as such, we use a lot of their infrastructure, and to a degree, we rely on a bit of their docs, and for our developers to have some Solana experience. Um, at least the more advanced ones. I'd like to remove that barrier. I'd like to have packages within the Koii ecosystem that really make it a self-sustaining, sort of more. I don't want to say insular community because I always want Koii to be able to collaborate with other projects, other L1s, other L2s, like anything, even Web2 businesses. But I think there's an important uh, important infrastructure that we need to build at Koii that helps it so that anything within the Koii ecosystem is accessible from anything else in the Koii ecosystem. And I want to make that as easy as possible. I don't want to have all these conflicting packages. I want to have one package, and it's called the Koii package, and that's really all you need to get yourself through all of the Koii hurdles.
Now you're halfway there already, right? I remember the early days of Koi, the goal was everything on Koi could be developed with JavaScript, even smart contracts. So that kind of brings you partway there, right? Or are they two separate things?
Sorry, could you repeat that? I think I cut out halfway through.
Just I know that one of the early missions of Koi was to make sure that you didn't need um, any advanced like smart contract programming experience. You could do everything with JavaScript.
Right.
Does that
Yes.
does that help in the previous question, getting everything to kind of play nice together? Or are they two
Absolutely.
separate issues?
It's the same ethos, but we're actually moving towards even better technology now, as we'd like to do here at Koi. So yeah, I think our first innovation was that you can now basically have smart contracts auto write themselves based off stuff that you do in JavaScript, and that's still true today. Now we're going to move to something more complex. We're calling them Orca containers. They're functionally Docker containers that work within the task node on Koi. And for the non-technical people, what that means is you can take any coding language now and you can develop something on Koi, and that it doesn't matter what language you're in. It could be JavaScript, it could be Python, it could even be, you could be using Rust, or we even want to make Ethereum-friendly packages too, such that anything you write will automatically get broken down and compiled into smart contracts where that's necessary and executables where that's necessary. So that basically anytime you can come to Koi with any language, you can write anything you want, and it'll automatically get converted, and you don't have to worry about the blockchain of it all. And I do think that's really cool.
So just to kind of translate that a bit, it's a bit like a translator and a compiler. So I could break out my old school Pascal programming and it could anything in the system it can automatically handle.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow, that's that's rather impressive. Um, so will there still be an advantage? And maybe this is more of a meta question than a Koi question, but will there still be an advantage for hardcore programmers on Koi a year from now, or will the playing field be almost level?
No, there will always be an advantage, in my opinion. The easier it is, the the easier it is to develop on Koi, the easier it is to leverage your skills. If you're a really good developer and you can do all of that, boring sort of boilerplate, very, you know, low level junior stuff really easily, right? You can do the majority of what you want to get done super quickly. Then making these edits with your high level knowledge, I think it's an improvement. It's a superpower. You'll be able to take your skills much farther on Koi than you would somewhere else. Similar, honestly, to give credit where credit's due, is how Amazon does it, where Amazon doesn't. New devs and experienced devs can both come to Amazon Web Services, and they can deploy cloud services, just like you can with Koi. And similarly, if you're an advanced dev, you can take advantage of a lot more because you're going to save yourself so much time by using the features and tools that Amazon or Koi builds for you. And so you can get a lot farther with your cloud project than you would have otherwise.
That's interesting. It occurs to me that I've been babbling and we haven't checked the audience for questions. I know that we had help doing that last week. Is somebody vetting the questions for us this week? We got 10 minutes left. I want to make sure that we get to at least a few of these.
I think I forgot to pull Ina up to do that. I'll pull her up now, but in general, I could take a peek. Uh, who named it Koi and why? Alex named it Koi, and it's called the Knowledgeable Open Infinite Internet, and so that's what Koi stands for. That's what Koi means. Of course, we really liked the imagery that came with that. Koi means lucky fish, I believe, in Mandarin, and it also we liked the imagery that there's this koi fish, and it was in a bowl when it's really young, and then you put it into your koi pond when it's a little older, and then when it's at full age, you can let it jump into the ocean. Um, we liked that sort of story that told, the imagery that brought. What's another question? If you have find any questions, let me know. When to expect a mobile wallet? Um, a mobile wallet should be coming fairly soonish. Koii isn't actually working on that internally. We have a few people in the community who are really incentivized to start building that kind of stuff. So I think 3 different projects are working on 3 different mobile wallets, and the first one just dropped a huge update. I don't think it's quite public yet, but we'll be getting there very soon, announcing stuff to the community, and then yeah, there'll be a mobile wallet.
So that actually brings up a question I had. Uh, you kind of just addressed that there was like passion projects within the community. There's a need that Koi has, and then there's a member or members of the community that are kind of rising up to meet that need. Does Koi go out of their way to facilitate those priority projects, and what does that look like?
As in, like, internal priority projects?
Just the communication between maybe a developer working on something that's really critical to Koi, that you are. I mean, I know the whole democracy aspect of Koi from Al's perspective was kind of let the community develop on its own with guidance from Koi. So on these special projects that are kind of critical tasks, do you help at all? Do you facilitate beyond um, like the packages that you put out? Like, will Koi get on a call with a developer that is having an issue and help iron it out? Like, what would you want the community to know about that process?
Yeah. Something that I'd like to get going again once I have the time, and truthfully, I don't quite know when. But as we used to have these really nice developer webinars that went on every week. I think that was a really nice intimate time for developers to get help. We still have all of those up on YouTube. So there's a really strong resource if you're looking for some intro knowledge. I think on the more complex side of things, as you get into bigger, more advanced, and potentially more blockchain heavy projects, and where you need to really start incorporating the Solana side of things, um, and the K2 blockchain side of things a bit more. That's a point where we want to open up communications with you for sure. Typically, we try and host that through Telegram or Discord. About once or twice a week, I try and go through about 1/3 to half of my messages, and I try and reply to them all. So it's a bit of a revolving door for me to get around to replying to different messages and all the ones in the community. But I do my best to make sure that everybody has some help and support. I think one of the cool parts about this Discord community is that we have the builders section. And if you go in there, you'll notice that there's always some movement in there. Usually Saeed, who is he's the CTIO, he's the guy who works on the K2 blockchain. He's done a lot of the heavy lifting for Koi. You can find him in there. Again, he's not always available, but every now and then he'll reply to those more difficult questions. And I'm hoping that over time, we build up a large forum base of all these questions and stuff and answers that really help tackle through these problems. So I think we're on a journey a bit here right now, where it's like getting help and being involved with these key developers is sort of an ongoing process, um, where Koi wants to engage with them as much as possible until we can get all of their ideas and problems that they faced either in docs or in the builder support forums. And then a really cool idea I had, that's it's not anywhere soon, but would be what if we could train an AI based off all
Yeah.
the stuff that was said in the support forum.
I was just going to ask that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everybody's going to have one. Um, okay. Well, thank you. I had been wondering about that. I'm sure others had as well. And it may be that hearing that from you, it incentivizes some community builders to take more risks. They're not in this alone if they're doing something that's sort of mission critical. Um, were there any more community questions in the next 5 minutes that we had outstanding?
I did get pinged on one. It's from X. When will the 50% gas fee burning mechanism begin? Will there be a corresponding transaction hash for these burns? And for instance, sorry, excuse me. Will we be able to verify the token burning on the Koii Explorer with a visible transaction hash linked to the burning address? The short answer is I don't have a good answer for any of that. If I work backwards, will we be able to verify token burning on the Koii Explorer? In concept, yes, because we're a fork of Solana, and any burning that happens should be visible and hashed. It does depend on how we implement that smart contract for sure. But in concept, those tokens need to be in a wallet, and there has to be a hash for them being burned. When will the 50% gas fee burning mechanism begin, though? Truthfully, I'm not quite aware of what you're talking about. The 50% gas fee burning mechanism. Um, Yeah, I don't exactly know where you got that communication from. I do apologize. But if you can, oh, you got it from where? Is this the white paper? X? I'll come back to that question in a sec. Oh, from the Koii docs. Koii implements a mechanism where 50% of the gas fees are burned. Oh, sorry. I think I misunderstood your question. I see. Um, this is part of the sort of rent exemption policy. Um, Basically, over time, I don't think that gas fee is that it's necessarily burned in a hashable way. I think it's more so that the more gas you pay towards something called rent exemption. Right now, if you deploy a task, you just get rent exemption. Um, but basically, there's a mechanism there where the gas fee that's paid out to the validator, um, not the entire percent of it goes to the validator. Some of it goes to a pool. So it's not quite a burning in the traditional sense. It'll go into a pool. And that pool is essentially just there to sit. So it technically remains within circulating supply. You won't be able to hash it out. But the idea is that it is this deflationary mechanism. Now, that's how it worked on testnet. It's possible that that this either A isn't a mechanism on mainnet or it doesn't work that way. To be honest, I'm not sure. I'm just trying to be open and honest and transparent with you here. I think
Yeah.
it's a really good question.
Being
Something I should tackle.
being week one, I imagine there's going to be a few loose ends to still iron out.
hmm Yeah, X. As far as what you're saying, of course, the way we write it, yeah, burning is it should the token will not become available ever. In concept, if we're burning anything, the hash is available. So if you pay gas fees on a transaction and you can look at that hash, you should be able to see where all the tokens go, no matter what happens to them. That's probably the best answer for it. Gas also goes to token accounts. Yeah. You're also correct. So that's kind of what I was getting at, is that not all the gas actually goes to the validator account. It's split up in a way that incentivizes everybody who's a part of the community, and this is part of why the developers pay for their task rent exemption, so that you essentially the person who runs the task isn't paying any gas. Yeah, maybe Al can address it for sure. I don't know when he'll be around. I'll try and ask the team about that one and get some more information on exactly where the burning's coming from. If what we meant by that was that we're just sending it around, we're putting it in different places. Only 50% goes back to the validator, and thus that's a deflationary mechanism. I would understand that.
That does bring up a good question. Are there any plans to revisit all of these public docs now that you are mainnet and make sure that there's not any sort of legacy information in there?
Well, yeah, we actually do have a plan to start doing that, and part of me is worried that this may be an aspect of that. If this isn't in the tokenomics white paper document, I just haven't seen this 50% gas fees are burned. Um, so, for example, yeah, that might be something that is outdated in the docs. In general, the team is doing an internal sweep. There's a lot of work to get done, and right now we're sort of focusing in on a few key aspects. But I think that improving the docs is one of those key things that we're trying to improve. It
Okay.
might be a slower burn though, especially to get rid of information that's outdated. Adding new pages is the easy part. Getting
Yeah,
rid
of
of
course.
old pages, yeah.
Yeah. Sort of like finding Windows 3.11 code in Windows 11. Uh, okay. We're at the end here. Were there any more super pertinent questions floating around that you wanted to address, or do you want to hold any remainders over till next week? And were there any announcements you wanted to make? We never really got to that.
Sorry, I was just messaging someone on the team. X, I will get you an answer to that question. Just give me a bit, and I'll reach out soon. Sorry, any more questions? Ina, do you spot any other questions? Oh, one just came in. How will you stimulate more people to run nodes, and when is the DEX? Yeah, we have actually two DEXs in the works. A community member is working on their own DEX. And of course, we're working internally on our decks. The when question is a bit harder. Today, we sat down and we really tried to figure out the plan to get that live. Unfortunately, there's just been so many issues that have kind of prevented us from getting there. Um, and because of the nature of building a good quality decks, you need a senior person who can really handle the problem. So I think we need to we're gonna have to revisit sort of the conversation of when the Dex comes out. I think that soon is what I'd like to say. It's my priority, is what I can promise you. Um, Among, I think we highlighted three key projects that Koii wants to get out, and the Deep Index is certainly one of them. And how will we stimulate more people to run nodes? There's probably two ways to do that. The first is increase the amount of money everybody gets per day per running the node. And that's all that Koi comes down to at the end of the day. Everything we want to do is your node should be more valuable than it was yesterday, or at least the week before. And every update that we want to give out, every update we want to release is to do this. And hopefully, if we're continuously increasing the node's value every week, not only do you guys win, more people will come into the network to start participating in this wider and wider node ecosystem. And then we'll have more compute so we can give it out to more developers. And we hope this becomes, a self-fulfilling prophecy. If everybody just wins and wins, the more businesses end up using the cloud compute that you guys offer to the network. The other way is good old fashioned marketing, right? Just putting our names out there, having these kind of spaces so that we can teach you guys all the things you need to say to your friends and on Twitter. Hosting Twitter spaces, engaging in other communities. I think the big thing is not enough people know about Koi, but we have really, really strong technology and we have a really strong community. We all know exactly how this story is going to go. It's the next generation of compute. Like the fact that nobody in the world, aside from us here, are using laptops to power a compute network is kind of like it's insane. It doesn't make sense at all. So I think a big part of it is just getting more awareness out there. So yeah, a mixture of improving the amount of money everybody's making, and that's done by getting better tasks live, getting better task templates live. Every week, we're going to try and release something to the developer community to really make sure that developers can build good quality tasks on Koii. And then eventually, we're going to make it so that anybody can build it on Koii, long-term vision. And then once anybody can build good tasks, and there are good tasks on Koii, we just need to get more people aware of them. And I think it'll be just a exponential growth once we hit a certain point.
Let's say that you beef up your referral program and it goes wild, and everybody in the community invites 100 people and they invite 100 people. Obviously, it won't be that big of an exponential growth, but if you suddenly blow up and you're doing several million nodes, but haven't kept up with a number of quality tasks, does that bring Koii anywhere, or is that just an absolute bottleneck?
It's not. I wouldn't call it a bottleneck. It definitely brings Koii somewhere. When you have that
Okay.
amount of users around, right? That incentivizes developers to get through the headaches because they want to take advantage of all this, right? Imagine if a million people join Koii today, right? And you want to be the developer that takes advantage of those new 900,000 nodes. The first mover gets a huge advantage. And of course the compute capacity is so much higher. I'd imagine, let's say you had a million users, you could fill out, you could fill out a database. You could fill out a few terabytes of data within a week, right? You could collect a lot. Um, so I think that's sort of a huge vector there.
So
Sorry,
is it possible? Is it possible then to, in addition to giving tokens for the referral process, to work that into the reputation system? Because it strikes me that, I mean, we have a pretty robust community here. Um, Everybody here presumably knows other people that aren't running nodes at this point. Um, and the reputation system is a way uh, to add value to the referrer without necessarily blowing up your tokenomics. Um,
yeah.
so go
Uh,
ahead.
I think ultimately, getting more nodes on the network, while it's something that we need to work towards, I don't think it's our first priority. We have
Okay.
enough nodes. Really, we do. The compute capacity of our node network is huge. And of course, more people on the nodes would incentivize developers to come in. But I think at this point, it's about getting developers to really develop good tasks. And that comes from Koii creating really good docs and really good templates so that developers can do this. So I think that's the first step for us is really if we get really good tasks going and then we already have the user base we have, I think that's a match made in heaven. We start growing um, sort of automatically once you have strong tasks and a strong user base. I think we have a really strong user base. I think the rewards earnings per day is low right now, especially with all of these other KPL tokens that people aren't quite sure what they do or the value that comes from them.
Yeah.
Koii Ocean is a little too obfuscated. It's hard to see and hard to know about. A lot of people in the community don't even know about Koii Ocean, which is our for those who don't know, it's our ecosystem page where you can find out more about all the projects on Koii and all the tokens. Um, I think what we really need to do is we need to start supporting this developer community a significant amount. Um, I see a question there saying, TPS in the node is low, but really, I don't think that's a huge concern. We're a tech company, and our TPS is what it is. I think the big thing we're seeing here is that we have a capacity for much higher TPS. And that means we need to get developers here in the community working on projects that sort of incentivize that. I think developers working in public is something I'd like to see a lot more of in Koii. I think a lot of people are working on stuff in Koii, but they do it in private. And we don't have a great space to organize and facilitate a lot of this cross collaboration. which is another reason I really want to get those webinars going again. Because once we have a strong developer community, once we have a public developer community, and we already have this strong network of 100K nodes, I think we have the compute capacity to, we already have the compute capacity to make a more valuable desktop node that everybody can run. And once we do that, then more people will come automatically. So my focus right now, and I think Koi's focus, is developing that one miracle template that everybody wants to use, whether you're a developer or not. It's up to the developers to implement it, sure, and we'll get the developers to make those do that work. But ultimately, I think that once we have that, once we have those developers that've done that work, once Koi has made the tools necessary to get that live, then we'll be in a really good position to start absolutely jacking the node's revenue per day. And once the node's revenue per day is high enough, doesn't really matter what the Koi token price is, at least in the short term. What'll matter more is the token price of the KPL token associated with that AI. And that's why we think code writing AI is such a powerful use case. Because if you have an AI that can write code, you can make websites or you can make apps. And once you have once you have websites and apps and all that fun stuff, and you have that automated tool that can build it, I mean, I think everybody can tell like that would be a business that would win, right? Everybody would have to use that.
So you mentioned something in the middle there that interested me a bit. Do you have a thread? I'm looking now within your Discord channel that is sort of an unofficial job board. It strikes me that it would be interesting if people had development skills, they wanted to be involved, but didn't have a team around them already, that they could go and just find a team. They could list their skills, what they wanted to work on, and maybe a dedicated place that people can gather talent to write tasks. So they're not going it alone.
Yeah,
Have you seen? Go ahead.
we actually have our app ideas and team building channel. Um, if you go to Koi Builders here in Discord, I suggest going there. People are posting ideas all the time. One person was even talking about what White Wolf was asking for a mobile wallet on January 3rd, and then on January 12th, Fish Alexa was like, "Yeah, I'll give it a shot," or January 11th. Um, I think that's
That
really
is a
cool, right?
riot.
That's
That is
amazing.
a riot. I've been looking for White Wolf on here. I knew he was a member, but I haven't seen him during these happy hours. So that's funny. Funny you brought him up.
he's
Um,
a he's he's a good one, for sure. Um, so yeah, like that's the place where all of the building, I think, and team building should happen. And I think I want to start seeing more people building in public. Something that we did a lot of this year was Koi had a lot of hackathons. I think overall we pushed over like maybe over 2,000 people through all of our combined hackathons, which is an insane amount of people. And yet we only ended up getting really low quality sort of results. And what I've learned from that is what I think I want to have happen in Koi is instead of having these big hackathons, I'd like to have everybody developing and building in public in the same space. I think that auto code writers becoming a really important incentive mechanism for this, right? Because like all of a sudden we can all participate with just the click of a button. I don't have to be a coder, but I can participate in this discussion about something we're building. I think that's really cool. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think if the conversation's public, it's out there, and everybody can be, just around and talking about what they're building, and we can be solving problems together. I think that'd be amazing. I think a lot of people have the same problems. A lot of the times, people will come to me and they'll ask the same question over and over. Usually, it's about the namespace wrapper, so we improve the docs. But at the same time, if you had just come to the Discord community, you wouldn't have had to have, been on hold for a week or two while I was getting around to all of my messages. You'd just have your information immediately. So I think a big part of what we're doing here, I said we identified three key projects that we want to work on here at Koi. Um, the infrastructure for that, the supporting projects that go around those three main ones, really is just DevX improvements and community engagement and marketing. It's just being in these X spaces, being in these Discord spaces, getting back to hosting those webinars, getting back to really being present in the community and creating a safe space for developers to sort of thrive. Not a safe space, but rather a productive space, for developers to thrive.
Now, one thing I want to do in these calls is always be sure that we have an agreed upon definition. I remember it wasn't until my first crypto conference that I knew what the hell a hackathon was. Like, to a non-coder, there's a certain ambiguity about the term. Do you want to define what you mean by that?
What term in particular, sorry?
Hackathon.
Ah, yes. Sorry. A hackathon is basically just an event where a bunch of developers get together and they try and solve a difficult problem. That's basically all it is. It's like a marathon of coding or a marathon of hacking, as we call it, among developers.
So is it in a brainstorming session? Is it a deliverable session? Is it a party? Is it all the above?
It's sort of like a race. It's a competition. It's like a marathon. It really is. Everybody starts at the starting line, and they're given a really hard task, which is complete the marathon in the marathon's case. But in our case, it might be something more like, hey, implement Filecoin and IPFS onto Koii, for example. And then you have a short period of time to just get through it. So sometimes it's 3 days, sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's even 4 weeks. It really depends on the scope of what we're trying to do with the hackathon. But basically, yeah, then the developer will sit down and just like a marathoner who's just running through the whole thing nonstop, a developer will do the same thing. They'll sit down and they'll hack through the thing nonstop. And we call it hacking usually because the way you code when you're in that, state of mind is usually pretty poor. You're usually just writing nonsense. I remember when Koii, we were just at ETH ETH Global in Bangkok, and we ended up placing there, and it was like maybe 4 hours before the deadline, like 6 a.m. in the morning, before the deadline, and we were all just sitting there, and our variable names were the silliest things. Like one variable I remember was like "I'm so tired" in all caps, and it handled something like some math function that was going on. I remember it was a huge problem because we had no idea what the name of this function was. So we had to like use some complex expressions to find out the mathematical formula so that we could find it in our code. It was a nightmare. But that's truly the je ne sais quoi. What makes hackathons so special is that everybody's slowly losing their mind as they sprint towards
Right.
the end.
Well, not only that, I mean, the last hackathon I was at in person was, I think, ETH Denver 2022, and it was the top floor of whatever building they were in. And I I wanted to walk around with a stick and poke a few people because they looked dead. Like, I imagine that like dehydration is a real issue after day three. Uh-huh. So, okay. To a non-coder, I've just I've always wondered a question you just answered. Like, does anything quality ever come out of something where people don't sleep for 3 days? So I guess maybe yes, but then you have to go through and clean it quite a bit, right?
That's kind of it, yeah. The reality is nothing too quality comes out as far as the content goes. Usually the ideas are great because people are fresh right at the beginning and they come and they bring, this really unique, you know, mind that they have. Everybody has a unique mind and they solve the problem in a creative way and they're like, "Great, I've done this on paper. Now I just got to execute it." And then you're like, "Okay, I have to execute it in like, 48 hours, for example." So you just start typing. So the ideas are usually really good. I mean, we placed at, ETH Bangkok because we had a meme coin trading AI that we built on top of Koi. But the problem is it's a nightmare to use. It's really hard to use. We built it in probably like about 36 hours. Um, and it's filled with bugs and it doesn't make sense. And we tried to rebuild it, and rebuilding it was terrible. It was very, very difficult. Um, yeah, it's kind of funny, and of course, we had about 2,000 people come through our hackathons, and we don't really have any production worthy tasks. No tasks that like scream out at the community. And while it's given us a lot of insight into what you can build on Koii, what are the hurdles on Koii. I think there's a huge value in it for us. How easy is it to develop on Koii? If you're 24 hours sleep deprived, can you still finish a Koii task? Um, I think that's a good that's it's nice to hear that can happen. But yeah, I think hackathons, you have to follow up with all the hackathon winners, and you have to see if they want to do more work on it. And usually they don't. To be honest, they're just here to have fun at a competition, and I totally get that. Which is why I want to start engaging with these more serious developers. Is sort of where I'm going. It's the long tail of this.
I mean, it strikes me that, and again, from an outsider perspective, I'm sure I'm spouting off on stuff that is already well established within your community. Um, I mean, what an amazing team building, community building, and recruitment tool. And is there ways that can be better utilized? Um, are there unleveraged aspects to hackathons that you host that you wish to develop out further?
Um, I think professional hackathons are probably the direction we want to start moving in. Professional hackathons are more like they're more like a round robin style sports competition, where it's like you have two teams, or maybe you have a few teams, and they come to one like minor, and they all compete, and then the best teams of there go to the majors, and the best teams of that go to like an international. I think we'd really like to see that, where we see code turned into a really enjoyable competition that everybody's trying to keep track of. I think the benefit of that is you get these really superstar, stellar companies that sort of end up coming out of it at the end of the day. But on the
Gotcha.
obverse side of things, I think you also get not only this incredible quality that comes out of them, but you get a lot more viewership and engagement from the rest of the community.
Okay. Excellent. So, are there any? My last. I know we spent a lot of time on hackathons. I've just always found it kind of an interesting tool. Are there any overlaps between your college campus initiative and maybe smaller hackathons distributed throughout the world or the country?
Uh, Pardon? Sorry, I got distracted
Uh,
there.
oh, no, no. Just it strikes me that Koii campuses is a excellent place to have maybe smaller local hackathons. Will you be developing that out at all?
We have thought about it. We've talked with a lot of partners. Right now, I don't think it's my priority to do hackathons. I think my priority is to get all the developers in the community sort of building in public. Um, and I'm still figuring out exactly how I want to go about that, but that's sort of been on my mind.
Is it a matter of not wanting to reveal secret sauce, or is it just a matter of finding an effective way to communicate and collaborate?
I think it's more of the latter. It's finding an effective way to communicate and collaborate. There's no secret sauce that we have or don't have. I don't think right now. I think it's really
Oh, no,
just
no,
about.
no. Sorry. I don't mean Koii. I mean people maybe in competition developing tasks
Ah,
on Koii. Like, is
no,
that a concern?
not so much to me. No, I think it really comes down to if we have people building in public, I think that encourages other people to build in public, and I think when people feel encouraged to build, whether it's public or private, it just gets more people engaged in that ecosystem. And public just seems like the easier way to do it. Just have a bunch of people working together to solve problems always. Probably fosters a really, really good, solid, strong community.
Excellent. Yeah, hopefully a self-policing one too. That would be
Yeah.
nice.
I'm unfortunately gonna have to jump off now. I have another call
No,
I need to run to.
We are way over, so that's fine. Sorry, I diverted us to the hackathon thing because that was a particular interest of mine to learn more about.
Yeah, it's
Um,
all good.
did you have any last? One of the things you got pulled away earlier. I was asking, were there any announcements that you needed to make that you haven't? We haven't gone over any sort of announcements this call on your way out here.
I think that the biggest thing I want is like if you guys know developers that want to start building on Koii, or you're a developer who wants to start building on Koii, just stay tuned. Um, in the next week, we're gonna be coming out with some new opportunities for you guys. In particular, the dev webinars are going to be coming live again, and I'm really excited to start sharing those out again. So yeah, stay tuned, and there will be much more fun uh, that will be happening for the developer side of things. And hopefully, I'm hoping that I see one last comment. It's when's the bullish news? I think developer stuff is the bullish news. Because guys, think about it. If more developers are excited to build on Koii, then everybody else who's running the node wins. I think that's it. If every website in the world wanted to have a website on Koii, we'd be $1 billion company. So that's that's what we're going to be building towards. And I'm really excited to be a part of that journey. I think we're really on the cusp of building the next great thing, and the technology comes first for us.
Okay, so you're on your way out for your call, but when we meet next week, you need to build this mental image for me on what every company in the world with a website on Koii looks like. Like, website on Koii doesn't really mentally flow together for me, you know? Because Koii, in my mind, is a node that runs tasks, which doesn't look anything like a website. So what does it mean when you say that? But you have to go now. I will I will ask that again next week.
Absolutely, yeah, we can dive into that. I think that's actually a long conversation we can have too. So we'll chat more
Okay,
very soon.
sounds good. Thanks everybody for joining. Sorry if we didn't get to your question. Ask it again next week, and we will be better at having somebody monitor the questions real time. Everybody have a good week.
See you guys.